pump of the week Wednesday morning, smack dab in the middle of the working week once again. Grateful to be here with you. This is going to be an interesting time on Freshly Pressed, where we're going to take a look at the stories in the papers, analysis, your thoughts and contributions are on the cards. We look forward to that and a whole lot more. My name is Ayokunmi. It is a pleasure to be with you on a clear Wednesday morning. Unlike yesterday morning where it was rain, and more rain. This weather, it's absolutely confusing. I don't know what to make of it anymore, but we are grateful for life and for the opportunity to be here once again. And join us on WhatsApp, join us on YouTube. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know what you're feeling. Let us know where you stand, or you just are in terms of the stories we'll be talking about. The WhatsApp number is 0911 0911 Also join the live stream on YouTube and leave your comments there. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. All right. For analysis this morning, I'm being joined by two very awesome gentlemen in the persons of Lakunle Yusuf and Devoe Okorie. Lakunle, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Devoe. Good morning, the whole world. It's been a rather subtle and what word would I use? Not so pleasant week for me. One of my high school classmates passed on Sunday morning, so it's an opportunity for all the rest of us that are still here to reflect on those number of years that we've known each other, and to also pray for her soul, for God to grant her eternal rest.
Please do accept our condolences, Lakunle. Must be a tough one, but we hope that the Lord is able to guide the family and, of course, you and all the friends to be able to bear this loss. Devoe, good morning to you.
Morning, world. Morning, Smooth. Lagos, AY, Lakunle. Stronger in these times. Terrorism is plenty. Terrorism, yakba.
And on that note, I think you already know where we're starting the discussions this morning. We're stepping into the vanguard. This is somewhat of an update on the story we talked about yesterday concerning the kidnapping that happened in Kaduna State and the back and forth and denials and so on and so forth. Well, the Vanguard is where we're taking the story from, and it says the identities of the 177 persons kidnapped from the Ekwa Church and Cherubim and Seraphim Churches 1 and 2 at Krominwali community in Kajuru local government area of Kaduna State on Sunday have been revealed. Now, the list paints a harrowing picture of entire families taken away from their homes and places of worship, leaving the community traumatized and virtually empty of able-bodied residents. Now, this raid came barely a week after the same community paid 2.6 million naira ransom to secure the release of 20 residents previously abducted, according to the Vanguard. Now, that is on one hand, Devoe, because it's a two-part story. I just want to merge the two of them together, and then you can pick it up. Now, on the other hand, in Katsina State, suspected, I don't know why they keep calling them bandits, terrorists, let's use proper terminology. Suspected terrorists have reportedly resumed attacks in parts of Katsina State, killing 2 people and abducting over a dozen others in latest incidents. The same Katsina State where the government is mulling over releasing 70 of these terrorists. Devoe, some things not making any sense, but we're getting a clearer picture of what's happening in Kaduna State. Give us more insight.
Yeah, it's like a script is being written. Honestly, at this stage, at this point, it's safe to say that these things are calculated actions and government. The way this Kaduna case, because we thought Kaduna had crept out of the gory hands of terrorism. Now we're seeing something take place. Now, from this story, this story came out on Monday.
Yeah.
And as it came out, it was quickly denied by the government and the Commissioner of Police on Monday, who said that peddlers of fake news should desist, that they sent out people to these sites and I think in Kajum local government, and that nothing happened. That was the government's position on Monday.
Mm.
And they even went as far as charging whoever thought that it was true, produce the list of those who were kidnapped. And they said nobody came out. Hello. Yesterday on Tuesday, people were still wondering what happened. How can there be two stories? Some people say there was a kidnap. Another government comes out and says there was no kidnap. It was fake news. Well, today in most of the papers, the names have been published. Unfortunately, it happened. 3 churches were raided, okay, by terrorists coming in Okada, the Equa Church, and 2 Cherubim and CNS Cherubim and Seraphim churches in the
Mm.
Kwanu Wali community. That's in the Kajuru local government. Okay, so that's the first point of this story. It happened. Over here, we have 177 people abducted. Okay, and this took place on Sunday morning while they were worshiping, meaning broad daylight. Okay, they were firing sporadically, and at the end of the day, I think I hear about 13 people escaped. Okay, bringing the numbers down to about 163, and I think they released a few elderly people. Now, unfortunately, where this story goes sour is that the military who were called in, okay, the Christian Solidarity Worldwide Network of Nigeria, that's a network of churches who had called in the military, also went to the scene, and in trying to see how they could take note of what was going on, they said they
Right.
were blocked entry by the military. Okay, which is why, and they were like, why that we need to see our brothers and sisters, we were the ones that raised this report, etc. and co, even after identifying themselves, that look at how and where the terrorists had come in. Okay,
Mm.
and the terrorists came in on motorcycles and on foot and split into 3 groups, but they said the military blocked them, which is why the Christian Association of Nigeria chairman of the North, Reverend Dr. Joseph Hayab, accused the security agents of enabling the terrorists to escape with large numbers of victims. You know, we've always said, just like we've had in other cases of schools where they abducted about 200 and that was almost 300 students plus teachers, and other churches that they had attacked. That how are they able to escape with all these students? The Chibok case, the Dapchi case. There's so many cases to look at. Here,
True.
the Christian Association is directly pointing at, look, the military stopped. And you see, I want a rebuttal from the military on this fact, because if it is true that they stopped the Christian network from trying to get at these people, then it shows you where not collusion, which confirms the position that the retired general Danjuma had always said. Okay, now
Mm.
because the Christian Association was saying that if they had chased the bandits, the terrorists, okay, at the time that they were raising the alarm, they would not have escaped with as many as they could. Now, look at where the story even gets worse. When it rains, it pours. International condemnation pours in already. You know, America had its eyes on us. U.S. lawmaker Rep. Riley Moore described the abduction as horrific news and urged the Nigerian government to ensure that swift and safe return of the victims. That our brothers and sisters in Christ are facing an existential threat at the hands of Fulani militants. This is the Americans talking. More must be done to protect them. I urge the Nigerian government to ensure the swift and safe return. You know, when this happened, when America, Donald Trump made his threats, one of the positions that our government took was a position of denial, in the sense that we don't have a genocide taking place. Can you remember?
Right.
Can you
Right.
remember? We specifically were trying our best to tell them that no. Okay, then at some point it shifted to it's not just Christians, it's Muslims as well. So if you tie the Castina story, yes, even though Castina is trying to release bandits, about 70 in exchange for about 1,000 that were abducted. Remember, I've always said take note of that number, because tomorrow they'll deny that up to 1,000 people were in the custody. Can you imagine? For them to even go into negotiation, this is confirming that up to 1,000 people are in the custody of terrorists. Imagine that. This is Castina. We're just even discussing Kaduna now. In Castina, 1,000 people were already in terrorist captivity. What kind of country are we living in? Now, with these things happening, what do you want to tell the Americans at the end of the day? What do you want to tell them, even though they've said they're going to go to? What is the point of a $9 million PR contract to try and to try and PR or public relations or give a softer position that Nigeria is not dangerous? What nonsense is this? Another unfortunate incident, Peter Obi has said that the government needs to step up to swiftly address this issue. Now, I think in that same Kaduna, there was a nursing mother case that the terrorists took away a nursing mother, despite
Yeah.
the fact that the husband and were demanded about 100 million. Now, you see, my point is this. I started this story that it seems as if a script is being written. It seems as if because now we know, even though the government have refused to acknowledge that they pay for the rescue of these people, because in the three earlier cases that took place immediately before the Sokoto attack by the Americans, all we heard was people were kidnapped, and then all of a sudden the DSS reached out to them and they were released. Clearly, some form of exchange took place, and it
Right.
looks as if now, is it that the terrorists are believing that before America fully comes in, that they need to make as much money as possible because this government seems to be paying. Because each time they release, we know that some form of exchange took place. Already, you're
All right.
seeing some states that are doing this negotiation with these bandits who are still not repentant. Look, Nigeria needs to what do I say here? Nigeria, this terrorism that they want to make culture in this country, we must begin to call these people out. Like I've said, and this is my last point. If the president and the VP, that's Tinubu and Shetima, do not want to start calling out the names of the people involved in these things, then they will have to step down. Because we can't live like this. No, it's not normal. They want to rationalize it. It's not normal that you just simply walk around on the street and you get kidnapped. And the
All
last
right,
point I
Devoe.
would say, maybe Christians and Muslims, like we did during the initial Boko Haram time in Jonathan, you have to start keeping vigilante. There's no way around it because we can't continue calling out churches, mosques that are being attacked simply because people kept a blind eye and believed that the government was going to come to their aid. I rest my case.
This particular issue, there is actually so much to unpack, and I'm actually glad you mentioned the trying to rationalize the point of spending all that money, the $9 million on a lobby a lobbyist body just trying to refresh our image out there with the US, and something like this then happened. So what exactly is the point? Luckily, I'm going to come to you right now, and let's take this story before we jump into the next one. This one ties into this security issue that we just talked about right now, and then we'll move on to another story that is lined up. This one is in the Guardian. Now, the presidency has insisted that the long debated claim of Christian genocide in Nigeria was falsely originated by members of the indigenous people of Biafra. That's IPOB. Now, a report published earlier this month by the New York Times had accused Emeka Umeagbalasi, a trader and leader of an Onitsha-based NGO, Inter Society, of masterminding the genocide claim that prompted the action of US President Donald Trump and some lawmakers. Lakunle, what sense do we make of this? Looking at what is happening and looking at what's the presidency is saying, is there a correlation here?
So for me, in my opinion, right, there is no smoke without fire, right? There must have been some elements of what they call the media power in pushing a narrative that may not entirely be correct in the way and manner it has been pushed. Okay, so for example, if you came to a village where majority are Christians and this kind of incidents happened there, the person reporting it will say, like we are now in Nigeria, that we are quick to push religion, tribe, ethnicity to the forefront to say we just were coming from church, the whole village. So it gives a perception then, therefore, that you have gone to deliberately kill Christians. Yeah. Vice versa, if you went to a village or town that are predominantly Muslims and such happens, you would say you have come to kill Muslims. Now, it will now not matter whether either side goes to the press to say these things as has been said. Anyone that goes to the press of the two to say it will be the one that the case will be treated. And that's what I think is a basis and foundation of this conversation.
Okay.
Now, are Christians being killed? Yes. Are Muslims being killed? Yes. But is that what is important? No. What I think is important is that human beings are being killed. Many of us are professing the faith we possess today, not because of conviction, but by matter of happenstance. We were born into it. And so that was the foundation of our conviction to stay where we are. Yeah. But as human beings, does it matter all of those things? Is it not important that you're human beings first and you treat that matter?
Mm.
The second thing I also want to speak to on this is the idea that a subnational, a small group, an NGO can outpress the government in terms of pushing any narrative. I am surprised. I am so disappointed in every apparatus of information management this government has, as far as this thing is concerned. How can the way the man at the head of this thing was described in the report I read? They said he's a screwdriver merchant trader in Onitsha market.
Yeah.
Let's assume that is what he is. Let's assume that it's not even that. How can one individual outpress the government so much now the government is now on the defensive on this matter as it has now become? I think it will start from the Minister for Information, the head of National Orientation Agency, the heads of the NTA, what's the name of that other one? Voice of Nigeria, Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, and every other government agency for information and news management. These are indictments on their part. Then let's add the other people, the other journalists in the private and whatever, who sit in the comforts of the office in Lagos, pick these new items and give it volume, as it were, without having seen exactly what has happened. And the government needs to do more. The matter that is the basis, the matter that is the primary in all of this is that people are being killed. The job of government is to provide security to ensure safety of life and property of every citizen. If you're not doing that, you are failing in your job. No other excuse that you can give them can make it work, whether it is an individual or not. Government must do its job, and it is so unbelievable that government is accusing a subnational and albeit a proscribed organization for this kind of thing. Where were you in pushing the real narrative that you believe is the thing until these guys came and pushed something that you believe is wrong? What are your apparatuses doing to manage the information, to put the information out there for people to know what government is doing, and let us even see the action? So for me, this defense that the government is putting up, yes, it makes sense, but the
It
real
makes sense.
information has gone ahead so far ahead that they are now playing catch up, and it's so unfortunate.
It is unfortunate, luckily, but I mean, I will say, like I mentioned before, looking at the presidency's claims, and looking at what has even happened, even just this week alone, doesn't it just pour water on the presidency's claims that hey, they're pushing a narrative that isn't true?
So for me, right, I I don't I do not hold an apology for my belief that it doesn't matter whether they are Christians or Muslims or whatever. But what is more important to me is that people are being killed, people are being displaced from their homes, And the government is helpless and is chasing one proscribed organization and bring arguments over whether they are Christians or Muslims. Do your job, save people's life, provide security everywhere so that this kind of conversations will not even happen in the first instance. That is what I'm saying. Do
All right,
your job.
let me take a thought or two before we get back into the stories. AB is on YouTube and he says the same military who left an area just before terrorists carried out an earlier abduction. And then further says, based even on this week's story, is there not clear evidence of targeting Christians and churches? How is it an IPOD problem? Luckily, AB is disagreeing with your attempts to, as he says, straddle the fence on on this particular matter.
See,
Let me, excuse me.
all of us will take sides. I am trying my possible best to be as objective as possible. If government had done its job of providing security, would terrorists have a say or a way in this country to do the things they are doing? Okay, let's assume they have also done it and the government has responded as appropriate. Would we be having this conversation? That's the take.
Anyway, let's go. I don't want to talk. Lakunle, what are you saying? When government does wrong, they've done wrong. Look at all the terrorism we're discussing now. What does that have to do with the Southeast? Or,
Exactly.
like you said, a proscribed organization or a Onitsha trader?
Devoe,
How can we allow governments to be manipulating us like this?
Devoe, you have said exactly what I have said. Exactly what I have said. How is it so important that you are doing debates with one person in one corner in somewhere when the bigger problem is that people are being killed, being displaced, losing their means of livelihood, and the whole country itself is at the danger of a famine because the farmers can't go to farm because people are being killed.
All right,
Isn't that
Lakunle.
a
We need to move on because this debate can rage back and forth for the next 24 hours and we probably will not make any headway at the end of the day. Devoe, let us talk about I don't know if you want to talk about the former AGF or we should head to Davos.
Number
I
one.
think number one. All right, that's fine. All right, let's talk some economic matters here at the Vanguard. What the federal government has said it plans to reduce its dependence on borrowing, invest more in the economy, and rely more on domestic resources. Now, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of Economy, Wale Edu, said this while speaking on Bloomberg Television at the ongoing 56th World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland yesterday. Let's run through this one very quickly.
Right. Minister of the Economy, Finance Minister Wale Edu, yes, was speaking on government's position. Obviously, you know, Davos is an economic meeting where global leaders come together to discuss many issues, and every country tries its best to put its best foot forward. So, yes, the federal government has been, what I call it, giving thumbs up for its fiscal moves with the removal of subsidy and harmonization of FX. But you see, that has only been one step forward. We have like 3 to 4 steps forward to actually make sense out of what actions were taken. So what you have in Nigeria is a high level of inequality where only you hear of some billions and millions moving in the hands of a few. So the bulk, 150 million Nigerians, are still in abject poverty in the midst of a few who have billions and millions. So to cascade this down, the Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, was saying that instead of borrowing more, which we've been doing through green bonds, euro bonds, etc., they would look at local domestic borrowing or financing. Now, the point here is what we want to see from the finance ministry is not talk, but action. And I would recommend to them in this instance, they need to look at, because if they intend to raise revenue locally, all when you say you want to raise revenue, even though they want to move tax revenue from 14% to 18%, that's the amount of tax to GDP. What you need currently in the capital markets, about 10 companies make up 80% of the capital markets, okay, which is currently at 100 trillion. It has crossed 100 trillion. If you want to raise more tax, meaning you want more MTNs, you want more Dangotes, okay, you want more BUAs, it means the federal government must look at SME policies that will grow Nigerian businesses from small scale to medium and large corporates. Now, that is done not only at the federal level, it's also done at the state level so that you raise more revenue, because that's how it works. You don't raise more revenue by putting your knee on the necks of businesses. You raise more revenue by ensuring that businesses can grow. This is how it's done, and this is what we want to hear from our finance minister. Take action. For example, outside the oil industry that gives us our highest FX revenue, how will the finance ministry and the state support exports so that we can raise our non-oil, diversify our FX earnings? How can the finance ministry support agri creativity, okay, transports to ensure that businesses, agriculture can move up and down, livestock, crop production, so that we can raise our productive capacity? If power is the biggest hindrance to businesses growing, how is the finance ministry going to deliver the power industry in Nigeria? These are the questions that need to be answered by the minister and the coordinating minister of the economy, so that we know that for sure, given the next 2 years of this administration, we have something to hold on to say, because of this reason, we're going to move forward as a people. That's what we want to
Okay.
hear. So, Edu, we're waiting on you.
And talking about other sectors, agriculture and so on and so forth. Lakunle, let's talk about livestock very quickly as we wrap up on the show this morning. We'll step into the Punch newspaper, where the federal government has unveiled plans to increase the contribution of Nigeria's livestock subsector to the nation's GDP from $32 billion to $74 billion within the next 10 years. Lofty aspirations, but is it doable?
Being a Nigerian and knowing what I've known of Nigerians all my life, nothing is beyond the Nigerian if they put with their minds that they want to do it. I believe that there are many things that we can do and we should do, but for obvious reasons, the sociological problem of us, the Nigerians ourselves, is what is holding us back, right? There's never been a want for policy or brilliant ideas of how to advance anything for that matter in Nigeria made by Nigeria, but it's always that will to do it. It's pleasing to hear that after all our debates about the National Livestock Policy Act, the RUGA, the whatever, that all the conversations we've had over the last 10 years about farming, this and that, we are having a conversation around doing this is $42 billion more in the next 10 years in livestock only. 2 or 3 years ago, we had people in the poultry sector crying about the price of maize. So this policy in itself will not be a standalone. It will also involve the cropping side of it, because okay, so if you are raising livestock, what are they going to feed on? So the policy cannot stand on its own. It will also, but where will you find money to do this? Just like Devoe said, that the Minister for Finance must be ready to work with this thing. So that is the grand plan we need to see. It is not for want of people to execute this thing. I know young Nigerians, old Nigerians who run farms in multiple places in Nigeria. I've been in this year of that's just 21 days old alone. I've been to 4 different people's farms in Nigeria, and I see what they are doing with privately raised funds. Now, imagine that government puts money, and then that's where the sociology problem comes in. The last time government tried to help private people with funds, what happened to it? People took the money, some went to marry wives number 2, 3, 4, and 5. Some went to collect chieftaincy title, and that's the sociology problem that we're talking about. So it's not much more about whether there is a policy or not. Policies are always there. Brilliant people, brilliant to get it done. It is just us to identify that that's what we want to do. It's also been pleasing that every time the government in the last 3 or 4 administrations always boasted about how they have increased our non-oil exports. I know the beautiful job that the Nigeria Export Promotion Council have been doing for some time now. I know some people who've taken advantage of that to carry their to add some level of value to the agricultural products that they are making in Nigeria. So if you look at Nigerian meat, as it were, they say our beef is very tough because our cows are always moving, so their muscles are strong. Unlike in some other climes where the cows just stay in one place, so they don't have strong muscles. We need to get to that point where people can say that I have a farm of 1,000 hectares of land where it is all animals. I have
All
this
right, man.
funny dream, funny idea and dream in my head that imagine that we can create some land mass in Nigeria the size of Niger State. I'm not saying Niger State itself, but create a land mass the size of Niger State and dedicate it simply to agriculture. Nothing else happens there. We would have no problem achieving any aim, anything that is been put in on paper as a policy.
Okay, time to take messages. A number of them. Let me see how many I can run through pretty quickly. Let me just start from, excuse me, let me just start from YouTube here. AB says the conversation is not about governments doing its job, but about IPO being blamed for narratives. David said, how can a trader convince a whole US government they had the facts? Sorry, how can a trader convince the whole US government they had the facts with all the intelligence, please? This is your feel good radio friend in Bielsa who says the talk about narratives and where they originate is absolutely irrelevant here. Christians are actually being targeted, but ultimately, Nigerians are the ones in danger. Terrorism must end in this country. All right, I hear you on that one. Who else is talking to us here? This is from Gilbert Musa in Festac, who says, I'm Gilbert Musa from, okay, Gilbert Musa in Festac. He says, on the proposed livestock scheme, first things first, it's only when security is assured that all sectors can be vibrant and wealth creation actually sustained. Tony Marine Beach says, if the police can come on air to deny something that actually happened instead of telling Nigerians they're investigating the claims, how can we prove to the world that we're not indeed a shameless and disgraced country, as been said by the US president? They continue to deny the claims of genocide, and it's happening almost every day to the point some persons want to hide it, and the military gets involved in the nasty business, preventing journalists from going in there. What a shame. This is from, excuse me, this is from Don Kelvin, who says, one thing the aftermath of NSAS has proved is when the government denies that an event happened and calls for proof that event really happened. The narrative being pushed by the presidency has a direction. This is the year before an election year, and one person that seems to be a threat to the presidency is from the region being pushed as in this narrative. This was how the narrative was pushed before the Civil War. This government knows precisely what it is doing. Peter from Festac says, good morning, all. I'm always sad when I hear Nigerian news on a daily basis. The Nigerian military is a terrorist infested is a terrorist infested organization. I'm not sure I agree with that assertion. Nigerians, let's chase them away. Also, the ruling party involved. I'm just trying to be very diplomatic with my words on this message. My prayer this morning is every person who is involved in this terrorism, they will. Thank you for your message, Peter. Cisco Delgado. Okay, he's telling Lakunle to accept his condolences over the demise of his schoolmates. Thank you, Cisco. Barrister Danokuda in Igodo says, good morning, crew. I don't want to believe that ragtag bandits and terrorists are overwhelming well-trained Nigerian security agents. It's ridiculous for anybody to believe that it's one Emeka and Onitsha that influenced Americans to strike in Sokoto. This is cheap propaganda. Okay, what's talking to us here? This is a message from this is Dr. I. It's a long one, but I can only shorten it. He says, good morning, Smooth. I take an exception with the analysis of terrorism against Christians in the northern part of Nigeria. Several reports from independent NGOs and media in those places show there are disproportionate attacks against Christians. Why are churches targeted? As for misinformation, if the government is more open and unbiased with information dissemination, there will be no room for any misinformation of Nigerians or Americans on the true state of insecurity in Nigeria. Tali says, all I can say is that Lakunle is committed to positive messaging. Hey, we need to keep the spirits up in one way or another. Let me see. Can I squeeze one more in here? Tali further says, it's very useful for hope because this Niger issues, very serious issues. And the Barrister Danukut, sorry, I beg your pardon, Ajayi Oloniloa in Magodo Sherry says, good morning, gentlemen. I wonder what the Kaduna state government will say now that the identities of those abducted by terrorists in Kajuru local government have been made public by their relatives. And with the resumption of attacks in Katsina state, despite the government's peace deals, and plans to release 70 of them, something is definitely wrong with the way government is handling the fight against this insecurity. All right, we need to wrap it up and jump out of the studio, man. Quite a morning. Thoughts raging back and forth, different opinions, but we all disagree to agree at the end of the day. Thank you all for your messages, and thank you, Devoe, and thank you, Lakunle, for making it an interesting morning. Devoe. All right, Lakunle, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ayo, for having me. And it's been worthwhile having listening to people's opinions on what our country has become. And like they say, any business that persists for so long like this, don't trust your government. I mean, let's watch, let's hold our government responsible for what they should do for us. Don't let's blame each other. Let's join together, hold our government responsible for their responsibility over us. That's what I would like to end today's conversation.
All right, thank you so much, Lakunle. Do have yourself a great Wednesday, and I hope you have a very good one. And Lagos, Nigeria, the entire world, thank you so much for being a part of Freshly Pressed this morning on the Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. We'll take a look at what's going on in the world of sports at 8:15 in the locker room. My name is Ayokunmi. This is Smooth 98.1.